This is an interview with Ernestine and Nathaniel Ridley for the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute's Oral History Project. I'm Dr. Horace Huntley. We're presently at the Birmingham Civil Rights Institute. Today is January 17, 1997. Listen, Mrs. Ridley, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and sit and talk with me today about your experiences in Birmingham, during the movement, and even beyond that. So we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. I just want to start by asking some basic foundation questions. Now, were both of you from Birmingham originally?
Originally, yeah, I'm from Georgia here because my father came here in 1921.
Oh, your father came in 1921.
1921, yeah.
And you were born,
I was born in Georgia, though, yeah.
Okay. And Ms. Ridley, where were you born?
I was born and raised right in Jefferson County, Birmingham.
Oh, so you are native Birmingham.
Native Birmingham.
Well, in fact, you just as well be native Birmingham.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, I went to school here.
Yeah,
so
came in
I think we
very
must have
young.
been about 3 or 4 years old when we came here, when I came here.
Right. What community did you grow up in?
I grew up in Zion City.
Yes, out there by the cemetery where Gaston on.
Right.
Uh-huh.
Yes. And where did
I
you?
grew up in Eastlake.
Eastlake. Okay. Well, you're on the same side of town.
Right, most likely, yeah.
Yeah. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had two sisters, and I was the only boy.
Okay. Were you the youngest, the oldest?
No, I was between them.
Oh, okay.
I had a sister, she was 13 months older than I.
Oh, okay.
And I have a sister now, and I'm about 3 years older than her.
That's all right. And Ms. Ridley, how many children did you have?
Well, it was 8 of us.
And where did you fit in?
I fitted. I'm the second
Oh, okay.
second child. After that, I had 6 brothers.
Oh, 6 brothers. So you had a lot of protection. Yes. What type of education did your parents have? Were they educated?
My father wasn't, he couldn't, no, he wouldn't. My mother was, yeah, she died in 55.
Okay.
But my father didn't have an education at all.
Yeah.
It was about 11 or 12 of them.
Okay, right.
And his father left early, and around about 1939, some friend of his wrote him and told him he had found him because he had been gone about 40 years when he was small when he left.
Mm-hmm.
But he went to, he was in a little place out of Pittsburgh called Eloquippa, Pennsylvania. And you do?
Okay.
And he went there and he talked with him and everything, and never forgetting, he came and stayed with us about 4 or 5 months after he found him and everything. And he had left them all because he came from Georgia. And the reason he said he left at that time, it was after him because he was making liquor in Georgia.
Right.
Long at that time, and that was in, must have been around about, I was born in 18, so it had to be around in maybe 1900, maybe before 1900 when he left. And he left and went to Eloquippa, and he come up with 2 more sons.
Mm-hmm.
And one of his younger brother, but passed away in 86, he had worked with one of them and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
He in Birmingham.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So your grandfather then was he a steel worker? He worked in steel mills in Alpha?
No, not my grandfather, because they weren't in Birmingham. My father he retired from Southern Railroad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he started with Southern Railroad around 1922.
Okay.
And,
This is your father?
that's my father, yeah.
Okay.
He retired in
And that's where he
54.
retired from the
Southern Railroad.
Southern Railroad.
Yeah.
Ms. Ridley, what about your parents?
Well, both of them, they went to I guess you call elementary school.
Right.
Because both of them could read and write.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my mother said she went something like the 4th grade. And I imagine my father went something like that. It was in the elementary school.
Sure. Yeah. And during that time,
That
Oh,
was
yeah.
that time.
That's
Yeah.
right.
That was pretty good.
Absolutely.
Because many people didn't have the opportunity to go to school at all.
Yeah.
My father did, yeah.
Tell me, what was it like growing up in Birmingham?
Well, when we were small, we thought we were happy. I imagine, now I was in Zion City. Now Zion City was very fortunate that we had our school right in the community.
Right.
And everybody cared about each other. You're talking about it takes a village to raise a child. Well, I was very lucky to be reared in Zion City where everybody cared about everybody else. And you could speak to some person's child, your neighbor's child. You could whip your neighbor's child.
Right.
And it would be all right with them because we wanted everybody to behave and to succeed.
Right. What kind of work did your parents do?
Now, my mother was a homemaker, and my father, in the early, he worked in the old mines.
An old man.
He worked at the old mine till the old mine gave out. And then he worked with the lumber company.
Okay. Do you know what old mine he worked in?
Slow.
Sloss.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'm very familiar with the old mines.
Oh, yeah?
I'm from that area, and I did some research
Right.
on union organization in the old mine district.
Yeah.
That's why when you said old mines, that
Yeah,
light
Yeah.
bulb.
Yeah.
Miss Ridley, you said your father worked in railroad.
Yeah, Southern Road.
What was your young life like in the community that you was raised up in?
Well, I was raised up what they called East Lake then, but they called it, I would say then, they called it Brown Spring. Now it's East Lake.
Okay.
So I was raised up in that. My father moved there in 1925, and he's been there ever since. He's 107 now.
No.
Yeah. And he having a birthday that coming up February. He'll be 108. Now in that community we lived in, it was all black. And when we moved there in 1925, I had started school before we moved there in 1925. We were living on 48th Street and around about 6th Avenue South. And when we moved out there, they had something like a school was going here. It was a house. Then you would call it Madrid Avenue. But now they changed the name since we was away to Old Polo Madrid. You know what that is, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's the name of it now. The house, I see it still sits there. I started school there. And I think I went to, I got into 2nd grade. And we left and started going to school in Woodlawn. It was elementary school there in Woodlawn. Patterson, they called it. Right. And I went there and I graduated from there and went to industrial at the time. I started industrial about 35 or something. Because I graduated from there in 19, what was that?
What?
38, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Graduated from what?
High school.
Oh.
So at that time, everybody went to industrial high school.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we had to pass, I imagine, 2 or 3.
Philip High School and Woodlawn High School. We had to pass. At that time, we had what they call a special we used to ride. And it come down there because they had the trolley cars at that time. Right down First Avenue, and they run 1 in the morning, run 2 in the morning, and 2 in the afternoon, and all that went on until we graduated and everything. So I didn't catch it. And we were at that time they were selling the school tickets for the trolley car down on 21st Street.
We got them at the Birmingham Electric.
Right.
Yeah, the electric company.
Electric company. Yeah.
And we could get our tickets, school tickets at a discount.
Yeah.
Right. Well, did you meet in school?
Yeah.
Yeah, we met in school. We met at Woodlawn High, Woodlawn Elementary School, and
Well, no, that was not Wood. It was Patterson.
Patterson, yeah, exactly.
It was in Woodlawn.
Yeah.
But it was Patterson.
Yeah.
So were you childhood sweethearts?
Well,
off and on.
Off
He
and on.
liked to travel.
Yeah, we started at Patterson and went on into high school. And we eventually married. We're coming up to our 56th year anniversary.
56. That's a blessing.
Come April. Yeah.
Is that right? Congratulations. Thank you. Yes, yes. Birmingham is noted for its segregationist policies.
Oh, yeah.
As you grew up in Birmingham and as you were married, can you describe what the society was like at the time?
Among black people.
White and black. I know.
White and black
The white and
relationships.
black, yeah.
Well, now it was very fortunate that we did have a special because I really realized, well, I knew it was segregation, but what I wasn't involved until I started to high school.
Mm.
Because as I said, we had our little elementary school there in the
Right, in the
community.
community, so you didn't have to go
I wasn't-
outside of
That's right.
of the village.
So the only time I would be involved, it's like if I had to ride the streetcar, we rode streetcars at that time. And after I started the high school, we would be, it was so much involvement with incidents. There were so many incidents we had where the white kids would harass us, call us names. And when we got on the streetcar, we had the conductors sometimes, they were fresh, if you hand them your money, your ticket or something, they would, hold your hand and something.
These are white conductors.
These are white
All
conductors.
white, yeah.
And same thing, when you went into a shoe store or something, we had that same, some of us had the same problem.
Right. How would you react to those kinds of situations?
Well, you most likely, you would ignore because it wasn't anything you could say, because even if you said anything, it would be denied by them.
Mm-hmm.
And by you being black, they would not recognize what you said.
Mm-hmm.
So we knew certain areas that we couldn't go. We knew certain stores that we went in as a female. Segregation when we went down to buy clothing, even. If you wanted to try on a hat, they had a little black cap there, and you had to put that black cap on before you could try on. Before you could try on a hat. Yeah, yeah. And as far as in the streets, as I said, there was always, sometimes they would stand on the sidewalks. Kids, white kids, if you had walking and had to pass by, they would stand on the sidewalks. And so you would have to get in the street or on the grass, to pass by.
Right.
So they had several little things that they would do for, do to you, harassing you, calling you out of your name.
Right. Were the experiences of young black men any different than the experiences of young black women at that time?
Oh, yeah. Much.
How was it different?
Well, in one instance, like, if you was to look at a white woman, and a white man would say, "Nigga, what you looking at this woman for?" Probably just glanced over there, and like when we used to walk from Industrial sometime, and walk all the way up here, and come right through this way, go right through the park, and some of these kids look like white kids, but it was black.
Right.
And they was going to school with us, a fellow named Walker. He used to walk all the way there. When you get to Alabama Theater, he would go in. Yeah, he would say, "Okay, I see y'all, fella," and he'd go in there and buy a ticket and go in there and sit down. Because he looked like a white fella.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Did he come back to tell you what it was like?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he
I had that experience too.
Yeah, he come back and tell you. Now, I went to work for TC&I at Tennessee Coal and Iron, and I was out there. I was switching for them for about 13 years.
Out in Fairfield?
Well, I did them all, yeah, because I would catch out of Ensley, but they had different places that you catch out.
Mhm.
And we had about 1,000 miles of railroad out there. I used to pull, like they had about 9 old mines in that section up in there.
And these scooters
Right.
down to
Right.
Musco.
Yeah, we used to pull them mines up there. And they had, Hamilton Slope and different mine, coal mine we used to pull.
What, you said you were a switchman?
Yeah, switchman, like a brakeman.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I did. I could, what we would do sometimes, we'd leave Ansley with around about 100 and some coke cars, and we set them off in Fairfield, down at the coke plant.
Mhm.
And I used to love to work the extra board, because I would get those jobs at the right fellas, switchman had for years and years, and it was a nice job.
That was coupling those cars.
Coupling cars, and I used to work the open hers and the blast furnace, and of course I worked them all down in plate mill.
Were there railroads inside the mine?
No, not inside. I guess they
just
had-
went down on the skiff.
Well, see what they would do. They would pull all the oil and stuff out, and bring it out and sit on the tracks.
Yeah, okay, and then.
And then we pick them up. Yeah, we would pick them up. We wouldn't have to go in the mine.
Mhm.
Now they got one rock mine. You know about that?
The limestone,
Limestone.
down
Right.
in, Bessemer,
Bessemer,
near
yeah.
Musco.
Right.
Right.
And they got one sulfur mine.
Okay.
You didn't know about that.
I'm not
Not familiar with that one, yeah. So we used to put them all, we used to go on on a mountain like that. I used to love to work a shift, go to work at 11:30 at night.
Mhm.
And, cause it was a nice one, you didn't have to do that much work. You pick up all your cars and set them off in Fairfield down there.
Mhm.
And the rest of them, you set them off at the old mines and coal mine. Then you would go pull in your track and you would sleep around about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
And then you get up and start dragging them all back, just coming back, like coming to Fairfield, coming in.
Mhm. So you never had the necessity to go into the mine?
Oh no, never had it since to go to the mine. Never been in a mine in my life. I just,
Well, let me ask you, what did you do after both of you finished school at Parker High School?
right.
It was industrial.
Industrial.
Describe industrial to me. What was it like at that time?
Well, Dr. Parker, he was the principal there at the time we started there. And Johnson, he was assistant principal.
Well, I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
Yeah.
my school
Mhm.
days at Palmer.
Were you involved in extracurricular activities?
Well, the first year I was the president of my homeroom class. And after then, I didn't have, I didn't do any more involvement because in the wintertime, it would be kind of late for me to stay after school, a lot of times. Because living farther out, because most of the time it takes about an hour to, go. It takes about an hour to get to school, an hour, to come back home. And in the wintertime, the days are short. And so a lot of the extracurriculums I couldn't be in because I would be too late coming home. I didn't want to come home in the dark.
Right.
But I enjoyed my days at, I started at Parker at
Mhm.
industrial.
Is there anything that sticks out in your mind about your experience at Industrial High?
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to
Well, I tell you, thing sticks out in my mind is Mrs. Roosevelt, the wife of our president.
Roosevelt, yeah.
She visited that school. W.C. Handy
Yeah,
visited school.
right.
And,
And Bethune, what's her name?
Mary
No,
Fowler?
Yeah, she visited that school, yeah.
so that stands out that I did get a chance to, to see those
Very
people.
notable individuals
Right.
coming
Right.
to town,
Right.
coming to Park, to Industrial.
That's right.
Yeah.
What did you do after high school?
Well, got married.
Yeah, let me see, we married in 41, yeah, right.
Mm.
So you then, did you ever go into the military?
Yeah.
You did.
Right.
Were you married before you went into the military?
Yes.
Okay. What was that experience like? What was the experience like? Now you had grown up in Birmingham,
Oh,
in
yeah.
the segregated society, and all of a sudden, were you drafted?
Yeah.
Drafted to the army
Right. I was in Air Force.
in the Air Force.
And,
Okay. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, we was taking our basic training in North Carolina. I didn't stay in too long though, and but we was taking out, and it was segregation. And then in North Carolina, that was where AT&T College there, and I think it was right, Greensboro, North Carolina. Yeah, that's where I take my basic training.
And how long were you in?
About 100 and some days. Yeah, right.
Why that length of time?
Well, I got out. I had ulcers at the time.
Disability.
Disability.
I said, okay, well, there were a lot of people that was hoping for disability to get out and couldn't get out.
Yeah.
So what was that experience? He being away from?
Well, my first child was born while he was away. Nathaniel Jr., the one that we wanted to go to Woodlawn, we petitioned for him to go to Woodlawn High School.
Yes.
So he was born while he was away, and it was very lonesome, because we were in our house by ourselves, and so it was kind of lonesome for me, although I had my family close by, so that helped.
Yeah, I was in there about 6 months, something like that. About that.
And then were you working at TCI when you went into the military?
No.
Okay. Where were you working?
Before I went in there, I was Pullman porter.
Okay.
Out of Chicago. I was running out of Chicago.
Okay. Were you a member of the Brotherhood of Sleeping?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about it. I mean, that's a very important piece of history.
Yeah, well, I lived there on south side of Chicago, and we used to we taking our training and everything, and we used to run out. Cause at that time, we my first job, I'll never forget it. We went into Oakland, California, and I worked that trip, and it was all sailors. And we went into Oakland, and it taken us about 5 days, cause that's the way they went around with those troops just to carry them into Oakland, And we left out of Oakland, and we came back to Chicago. And my next trip, I think it was in Los Angeles, and looked like I had all those long trips, And I stayed there until I went into the service. Yeah.
How did you get the job?
At that time, they was recruiting for porters at the time here on 20th Street and First Avenue. They had a building there that you could go in, and because they had ran it in the paper that they wanted, Pullman porters. So me and another fellow, he's dead now, and we went down and they accepted us, and they taking us up there on a train to Chicago, and we started out. We had a train for about a couple of weeks, then they put us to work.
Did you ever work outside the home?
No.
You
He wanted me to take care of the children. I had 2 children.
Right.
Only thing I worked with the PTA, the church. So I did that type of work.
Right. Now, you returned to Birmingham after you had been in the military, and then you would go to work for TCI.
Right.
In the 1940s and early 50s, there were not many black voters in the state of Alabama.
I can't remember when did we vote? We had to pay poll tax.
Yeah.
We couldn't vote for the longest. I can't remember the year that the blacks, started.
Do you remember when you took the test?
Yes.
Yeah. I remember
What
when
was
we
that
take-
like?
Oh, they would ask you questions, after you fill the line would be about 2 blocks long. You stand there in the cold just to get in there.
It take you about every 20 to
Right,
half an hour.
Mm.
They were very slow.
yeah.
All these are
All
black
these
people.
are black
All
people
black
standing
people.
out to
Up to the code out.
register to vote,
Uh-huh.
and they were very slow.
Now, is this in the 50s or 40s or 50s?
No, this in the 40s.
Was it?
Oh, yeah. It was in the 40s, around 48, 49.
Mm.
And it was asking you how many seeds in a watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if
Yeah, they would ask you silly
a
questions.
silly question like that, you know, and
What would your response be to those questions?
I have no idea how many, you know, that was
You
I
couldn't respond because you didn't know how many seeds was in a watermelon.
Right.
you know.
Right.
Mhm.
Um,
And they wanted you to say, well, you didn't know, so you would
Right.
look dumb, you know.
Well, you know, if you had been in service, then you wouldn't have to pay no poll tax.
Mm.
So I didn't have to pay no poll tax. But,
After you came out, or
Right.
before you went.
yeah, right.
Did you pass the test the first time that you?
No,
No.
No. Was there,
I saw the man, I saw the fellow who was giving the test. When I got up and left, he took my application and put it in the trash.
no, is that right?
I saw that because I happened to look back.
Mhm.
And, cause you know, you can kind of feel a person's actions, what they're gonna do.
Mhm.
And I knew he wasn't, you know,
Right.
he wasn't really listening. I mean, he did not want me to pass. I wasn't gonna pass the test, in other words.
Right.
So I saw him when he got up and just threw it in the garbage.
How many times did you go down before you passed?
I think the second time.
Yeah.
So,
Passed
We
the
passed the
second.
second
did you
time.
go together?
Yeah.
And because our church helped us out quite a bit too.
I see. So
We
you,
were able to get one a form that, you know, that would tell us what questions that would be asked. And we would attend classes in our church.
what church was this?
This was Zion City,
Mount
Baptist, Mount Zion Baptist Church,
Okay. So your church then was
helping us.
helping you
Mhm.
to prepare.
Prepare for
That's
for
right.
that,
If you could do that.
Yeah,
That's
right.
That's
Right.
That's right.
After you have become a registered voter, in the mid-50s, some things started happening. Of course, in 1954, you had the Brown versus Board of Education
Right,
decision.
right,
1955, we have the Montgomery Bus Board.
right.
In 1956, the NAACP is outlawed from operating in the state of Alabama.
Right.
Were you active in the NAACP? Did you help other people attempt to become registered voters? Were you active in that
Well,
period?
they would have drives
Right,
where
yeah.
we wouldn't pay our money, you know, pay somebody to be a member
Uh,
of the NAACP.
Well, in 1956, when the NAACP was outlawed, the Alabama Christian Movement for Human Rights was organized.
right, right.
Were you a part of that organization at the initial stages? Did you go to those early meetings?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we did.
Why at that time did you think the Alabama Christian Movement was necessary?
Because they had outlawed it, you
Of
know.
the NAACP.
Mhm.
And at that time too, Dr. King, the bus right there in Montgomery, and he came to Birmingham, and at least I'm trying to think, did he speak at one of our meetings?
Yeah, well, no, he was at the church. I never know him.
And,
No, he was at the church. Yeah.
And I kind of feel like too, you know, that inspired us to start, because we were already, you know, working with Reverend Shuttleworth at the time.
You attended then the mass meetings.
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you describe what a mass meeting was like?
The mass meeting, I mean, it was a mass of people.
Right.
And they were very enthused. Suggestions would be made, you know, to involve us in opening up. Say we were going to what is the word I want to use? That, well, say we would want to go and desegregate the lunch rooms, parks, or whatever.
In the facilities that were
Facility.
segregated.
Right.
Facilities,
Right.
yes.
Right.
So, at the meetings, you always, when it was suggested that we do this, everybody was just enthused. But when it came to volunteers, when it came to volunteers, no, they began to, back. It was always, it's gonna always be a favor. You're just gonna really get out and do the footwork,
I used to work a lot of night shifts and I would see my name on the boxcar. They had to go back to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh,
They know the job I was working because I imagine, like I said.
That was after we,
Right.
applied for our son.
Yeah, in 57, right? Is that
Yes.
57 when you applied?
Right.
Yes,
You filed a lawsuit.
yes,
Right.
right.
Was that as a result of your involvement with the Alabama Christian movement?
Yes.
Can you explain how that happened? What was the procedure for the filing of the lawsuit?
Well, I understand before we got involved, I think it was 56. Someone had applied once before.
Is this? Let me just ask you: did you file your suit after Fred Shuttlesworth and his wife attempted to get their children enrolled, and they were beaten?
We all at the same time.
All at the
It was
same
all
time.
at the same
Right.
time.
All at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah. Because it was filed, like all together.
Mhm.
Our names were put in, as one,
Right. Were your children were your children with Fred when he went to Phillips High School that morning?
No,
No.
no.
Oh, no.
Because we applied for Woodlawn.
I see.
Yeah.
We applied for Woodlawn and, we never did actually
Take
go.
them.
Take them, right.
Mhm. Okay.
Who was your lawyer?
We had Dr. Scholes
Mhm.
and, I've forgotten the lawyers.
Right.
It's on that, what is the man with the cell, with the, council? He was on.
Oh, yeah.
Newton.
Yeah.
I know he was involved.
Newton.
Now, I don't know about him being actually a lawyer.
Yeah, and they had.
But I know
another
all
one
that
there.
Joe was involved.
Yeah.
And we had another man named Fred something.
He was
Yeah.
the lead attorney.
Right.
Shows was the lead
Right.
attorney.
Yeah. Dr. Joe. Yeah. He was.
Now, after you filed the suit, what took place?
Well, that's when the harassment started.
When we filed the suit, it naturally came out in the newspaper. The very day that it came out in the newspaper, we started getting all these harassing phone calls. And they were quite often, and they were telling us what they were gonna do. Well, like burn your house, just harassment,
That's when
go
the
back
phone
to
calls
Africa,
were-
yeah,
yeah.
and go back to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when the harassment started, after our names came out in the Birmingham newspaper.
How did this affect your children?
Well, they were so young at the time. I don't.
Well, we
really-
would answer the phone
You're right.
because we knew,
Mhm.
what was going on. And, so we didn't let them answer the phone. We answered the telephone because we knew just about what it was gonna be. And they harassed you night and day. And they harassed my husband on the job.
Mhm.
He worked around, those box cars on the railroad there. And they would write he said they would write his name
Mhm. Yeah.
on the box cars,
Because they had to tell them what shift I was working. Because White was running everything anyway. That's.
Did anyone ever say anything to you? on the
Question?
job? Yes.
No.
They
Never
never
said.
approached you.
They approached me, and I was with all white outfit. I was only black on that.
But they were
90%
right.
of the time.
Is that right? They were right on the box car.
Oh, yeah.
Messages for you.
Right. Right.
And how would you respond to those?
Well, I wouldn't sit under
Just
nobody,
ignore 'em.
just ignore them, you know. and-
Ignore them and watch out, be more careful.
What, did that put any fear into you?
Well, you know, when, from the first phone call, praise the Lord,
Yeah.
I just said, my God, I think I've done what I thought was right. And I asked him to just be with me and to take the pressure off of me. And praise the Lord, he did. I mean, naturally they were scary, but I wouldn't just say fear, but you know how you just gotta fear everything. You're afraid to go out, afraid no, that never happened.
Why did you make the determination to file the lawsuit?
We wanted to desegregate the Birmingham schools. Well, you know, by going to the all black schools, we were always second
No,
class, you know.
right.
We always got the broken down
Brown.
furniture from the
Desk,
or desk. Whenever we would get a desk in our classroom, somebody's name was already
We done
carved.
carved
They
it.
carved the name in it.
These were new desks.
Yeah.
In our
And
school.
one time, they made a mistake, and they brought to my school in Zion City, they brought new desks. And oh, the principal was so happy. I think I had left then. I think matured probably at this school then. She was so happy. Ooh, we got new desks. And before the day was over, they came and picked those desks up. They had made a mistake.
Put them in the room.
Put them in the wrong school. They were meant for a white school. But they made a mistake and brought them to the black school. But before the day was up, they came and exchanged them and brought them the old cut up, broken down desks.
The desks from the white school.
From the white
Probably
school.
took those desks back.
That's right, from the white school. And even in stores, I forgot to mention, you know, when we went into a store, whether it was a department store, grocery store, whatever, we had to always wait to the white folks, you know, until they were served. Sometimes you could be standing there. You were supposed to be the next one to be waited on, standing at the counter. And they would look over you. And what did you want, you know? And even if you spoke up, they wouldn't pay you any attention. So when I was here first, they didn't pay you any
Well,
attention.
when we left from here going to New York in '59, blacks were doing nothing in the office here. Nothing.
Why did you decide to leave Birmingham?
We decided to leave Birmingham because our children were growing up, began to be teenagers and going to college. And he was working at TCI. And they laid
And they
off.
laid off so much.
They laid off so
Yeah.
often.
They were starting to close the mines at that time.
Well, not when I left from here. But after I left, I found out, you know, like a lot of those black switchmen, they become conductors. Well, that was in the later years, you know. I think it was in the late '60s, maybe early '70s. I had heard, you know. But
Were you a member of the union?
CIO, yeah, that, yeah.
Okay. Were you a member of the steelwork organization or mine and smelter workers?
The union they had at the time when I was there was CIO.
Okay.
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Uh-huh.
the umbrella.
Umbrella, yeah,
of
right.
a lot of
And
different organizations.
those switchmen, they had some kind of little union there. I can't think of the name of the union they had,
Right.
but they had some kind of union there. And if I'd have had 2 more years, I could have got a little pension from them.
Is that right? So you decided to leave in '59. Why did you decide to go to New York? Why not to California?
We had
We had relatives there. She had 3 brothers there, didn't you? I think she had 3 brothers there. I had, at that time, I had two sisters there. And
Well, what was that like, moving from Birmingham, Alabama to New York City?
I had been there before, and she had too. We had been there several times before we moved there on a visit. First time I went to New York in 1938. And it wasn't no really strange place to us, but now getting the job, now I went there, I was gonna try and work on the Long Island Railroad. Since I was, looked like most of the residents there was, attached with transportation like railroad. And it's a long history, they working railroad people.
Right.
So, when I went there, I was gonna get a job into, Long Island Railroad, that's what I was, gonna get. And her brother worked at United Airlines. He said they hired him. And, I got there on the 4th, and on the 23rd, I went to work for United Airlines, stayed there till I retired.
Is that right?
Right. Never was laid off.
Mm.
Never missed a day. So,
Well, did you come back to Birmingham to visit periodically?
oh yeah.
Yes, those are our parents. My
Yeah.
mother, my family, my mother and father were living
Mhm.
at the time.
Mhm.
My father died in 79 and my mother died.
76.
Oh, 76? Oh, 76.
Yeah.
My mother at 82.
Uh,
Did you then, after you got to New York, did you work outside of the home?
No.
You were still at home. Your children then were high school.
Yes. They
And-
went to high school.
What was the transition like for them to leave Birmingham and?
Oh, they seemed happy.
oh, it was
They seemed
happy.
that they adjusted very well.
Oh, yeah, kids, yeah. My son, he went to school downtown. Yeah, what's the name of that school?
No, Chelsea. Chelsea.
Chelsea.
Chelsea, huh?
Mhm. Now, they graduated from school.
Did they go off to college?
No.
No, my daughter now, she went to the community college in Ohio, but she didn't finish. She
But
did
they
study.
stayed in New York.
Oh,
They
yeah.
didn't come back to
Oh,
Birmingham.
no.
No, our son is still in New York.
Our son's still. he
And
retired
our
from
daughter
police
is
force
in-
there.
In San Francisco, really Vallejo, suburb of San Francisco.
Our son retired, he was in, this Vietnam War, he was there, he went in when he was 18.
Mhm.
I think he stayed in, about 6 years?
Because you had segregation there because his school,
Oh, yeah.
he wanted to go into the electronic. And he was good. But they told him that was like a family to do. You had to know somebody, your uncle or your daddy or somebody,
That's a
work for the,
recommended
yeah.
Prominent too?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So, they suggested that he get his, military, behind him. And so that's what he did because he couldn't go into what he wanted to go into.
So they actually told him that.
Yeah, they told him, said, well, I tell you, this unless you have an uncle, somebody on the inside, or the father, or grandfather.
Right.
It would be hard, and you didn't just tell him you wouldn't be able to get a job, but they suggested that.
Mhm.
They put in his mind he wouldn't be able to get one, which I imagine he wouldn't have.
Yeah, he was, in the service about 6 years. He was. And,
What was the outcome of the suit, the lawsuit? that you-
for the lawsuit,
Let me see, they asked us to bring the children to, I forgot what address. You talking about when we filed a suit for them to go to school here in
that's right.
Birmingham.
That's right.
Okay. The outcome of that was, they asked us to bring the children in for testing. They had a time for you to bring them in. Well, we knew how they had been acting, so we did not, participate in, carrying them to be tested because we knew that was just something to throw us off.
right.
So we decided not to.
So you decided to just
Yeah.
leave Birmingham and go to New York
Right.
rather than have them to go through
Oh,
that.
well, that was over
Yeah,
then.
it was
See,
over,
we, because Reverend Shuttlesworth, I think it was some Armstrong or something, it's been
Right.
quite a while, I've forgotten.
Mhm.
They actually carried the children. Reverend Shuttlesworth, I think, went to Phillips High School. And that's when they beat him, I think, with those chains.
Mhm.
Right, he was beaten there in
Mhm.
57. And the Armstrongs would eventually send their children to Graymont.
Great
They
money.
would
That's right.
actually desegregate the school.
That's
Right.
That's true.
But Shuttlesworth was not successful
Right.
That's right.
at Phillips High School.
Right. Now it felt.
No, either. And the reason we didn't go in there, because out in our section, there were 3 other families that signed up to send their child to Woodlawn High School, the one that we applied for. But see, they dropped out. When the harassment started,
Mhm.
well, they gave it up.
Right.
And so we were the only one in that section, in the East Lake section,
So remain
that remained.
part of the school.
Yes. And so, after they had tried the other school, they want just one person to go because they felt like, you know, it might have been bloodshed or whatever, like it was at Phillips High School.
Right. So when you left Birmingham in '59 and went to New York, you remained in New York for how long?
29 years.
For 29 years.
You was there, went down in, what year was it? 59 and stayed there until 84.
88.
I was, 88, yeah. I retired in 84.
Oh, 88.
Yeah, we stayed at the 88.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, why did you decide to come back to Birmingham?
Well, we really, at the beginning, after I retired, we wasn't thinking about coming back to Birmingham at all.
Well, I tell you, our section, we lived in Flushing, New York. That's a suburb. Very beautiful tree-lined street.
Mhm.
Mixed neighborhood. Big home, big houses. And we liked it very much. So in the later years, the Chinese, the Orientals, what are the Chinese and
Korea.
Korean, so they start coming in. And our city fathers of that section, Flushing, and Flushing, they came in with the money. And so they start letting them do things that they weren't supposed to do.
Like what? For instance?
Like tearing down homes and one family dwelling and putting 6 apartments in the space where it once was a one family
Yeah.
dwelling.
We just had
See,
50
they
feet.
knew how to
Yeah.
do it. They turned it the long way,
Right.
and you would get more apartments. So that's the reason we left, because that's what happened right next door to us.
Mm.
Right next door to us, they tore down a beautiful one-family home, and they put 6 apartments in there. And I was calling the planning board all the time, telling them what was going on, because they weren't supposed to do that. The only rule that they did keep, they didn't let it go farther than 2 stories.
Mm.
That was a rule. They couldn't go higher
Mhm.
than a 2-story.
And only Asian people were moving into these.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
mostly, yeah. But the first
And
one
they came in
started,
with the
that was
money.
East
They
Indian.
came in
Yeah.
with the money.
Yeah, East Indian was the first one started in that neighborhood.
Mm.
And I don't guess their money was long enough, but them Chinese started coming in. And Korea.
Mhm.
Now, in that Flushing area now, of course, we had one department store in Flushing now. Have you been in Queen, Brian, that section?
I know nothing about. I've been to Queens.
Oh, yeah.
But not in the Flushing,
Right.
Flushing
I don't
area.
think I've ever been to
We
Flushing.
weren't too far from Shea Station.
Shea Station, we were within walking distance of Shea Station. And we had bought a home there, we bought that home there, but in 6-1, I believe, yeah, 6-1.
Well, how do you compare Birmingham today and the Birmingham of old?
Well,
Great difference.
but it's just like night and day, as far as that concerned, so what we was doing before we moved back, we would drive down and we would stay like a month. Spend a month down there, and me and the wife and my sister,
Yeah, cheery.
and we would come stay a whole month after I retired. And he said, well, you can check down there a lot, and the neighborhoods was better, because we live out in the Winewood section. You ever been out that way?
Yes.
And that's the section we live in. And at that particular time, my sister was thinking about moving back down here. And she had this real estate lady taking her around, showing her places. And because after I retired, I had remodeled my basement there in New York. I wasn't thinking about coming back here. So her mother had asked, y'all thinking about coming back? And we said, no, we don't think we're going to come back, you know.
Yeah, so that was basically,
Yeah.
well, that was basically it, because the Orienters moved in. They weren't clean. They didn't clean that. Their places were filthy. It looked kind of like Samson and Sons plays on TV.
Yeah, they wait
But now they
19
worked.
hours.
Now they would work. Yeah, now they worked almost, I guess, 18 to 20
20
hours a week.
Yeah, a day.
A day.
Yeah,
a day.
a day.
But they would not keep the place clean. So and it would be so, yeah, the neighborhood was, it's gonna be deteriorating, yes, yeah. They talk about us deteriorating the neighborhood. Those Orientals have deteriorated flushes.
You guys see?
Have you been back?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we was there in December.
Uh-huh.
We was there in December.
They were buying all of the theaters, they were buying everything they could put their hands on. And any time they could get a space of land, they put a building there. So it is really gone, it's really deteriorated.
Yeah, we there every year, just about, you know. We have a son now, he retired from the police force. Yeah, he worked, you know, with them for about 22 years. Mm-hmm.
Well, you've been very helpful. We've talked about Birmingham in the 1920s all the way to the Flushing, New York, and back to Birmingham. And it's you've told us about the movement, your contribution in terms of the desegregation case, which of course is very, very important. And I want to just thank you for taking time out to come and sit and talk with us. Is there anything else that you would like to mention before we end the conversation?
Not really, yeah.
Well,
I was trying to think of, we were really learning Birmingham since we've been back.
Is that right?
Yeah, because they didn't have no freeway, you know, nothing like that. The main drag at that time was First Avenue. So,
only thing I wish that Black history would be taught in the schools.
yeah,
That's great. Yes, we have, and there's an effort to do that.
right.
Yeah. But even when I was in school, we did have Black history.
We had Black history.
But they have gotten away from it. I wish they would, because Black people have made so many contributions
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
to the building of this country,
Absolutely.
to fighting the war. We've been involved in everything to build this country to what it is today.
Absolutely. And that needs to be recognized.
And that need to be recognized.
Well, we got so many Black people, young and old, is in the now. Yeah. Yeah.
That's right. Well, I just want to thank you for coming, taking time out of your schedule. And you've been very, very helpful.
Okay.
Okay.